my significant other, like I said, she's older, so her youngest child and I are very close, and he's 23, and it's constantly the conversation we have is, I tell her, she's like, well, I want to be able to provide. I'm like, well, he'll be able to provide as long as he's doing what he likes doing. He'll be able to provide.
23?
Yeah.
He's the provider now. Tell him that.
Well, no, I mean, he's still finishing college up and all that stuff and things like that. But when he becomes, I meant in the sense of like right now he works in a restaurant, right? And he makes really good money working in a restaurant, but he doesn't have, the thing I like about it is I see him saving money. I see he gives me access to his brokerage account, and I see every single month it going up. And I'm like, okay. And the reason is I want to get him that habit of saying, the habit is important for me of seeing him say, I am paying myself first. You sit there and say, just like you said earlier about, we can all agree that value investing is buying something for less than we think it's worth. I think we can agree that, as much as I hate the statement because I don't like people blaming outside influences. The point is we do have a lot of outside influences and it's evidence in the fact that when we talk to these high school kids and say, what does happiness mean to you? At some point it gets back to how much money you make, just like I had when I was 18. When I was 18, I mean, Kenneth, I always tell this, and this is absolute 100% fact, put me on lie detector. I used to believe that happiness meant being the richest person in the world. That was my level.
We all go through that.
No, but like, I get what you're saying, having wealth. No, I literally mean like, I would have a jealousy of Elon Musk right now as to why he's the richest man in the world. I'd be like, man, why can't I get there? I'm 40 right now. The new CEO of Twitter is 37. 15 years ago, that would have bothered me. Now I'm like, good for him. I hope he's happy. I hope it's really what he wants to do. And that's the shift that I've had with money that, I used to believe in, okay, the more money I make, the bigger my house has to be. And now the funny part is, go ahead.
Warren and Charlie speak on the subject very eloquently. They say that of the 7 deadly sins, the worst one is envy.
Yes.
Because nobody wins.
Right. Yeah, nobody wins.
Nobody wins. So, I mean, you got to disgorge that thought from your head immediately, Paul.
Oh, Kenneth, it's disgorged completely. And that's what I'm saying, though. But it took 15 years of the self-awareness. And when I was 30, the epiphany for me was I was 30. I saw my net worth. I saw my income. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not happy. I was fortunate to have that epiphany. Some people think, okay, add another 0, I'll be happier then. But for me, I was lucky enough to say when I was 18, I said, if I have this much money, I'm going to have this, this, and this. And I had it at 30, and I'm like, wait, but something... That's the reason I bring these conversations, Kenneth. I think you and I might be in a different stage in our lives when the average viewer just views, like Seth said, the average viewer of our channel looks at me and says, Paul has everything he needs. He has a nice house, got all this. He must be happy. That's not what makes me happy. But people would sit there and say, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say that because you have it. Or my argument is, listen to me because I have it and realize that's not what made me happy. What made me happy was I do exactly what I want to do. I mean, I started a company in 2004. I stepped down as CEO 2 years ago. The thought of doing that 10 years ago never, ever was going to happen. And I remember being in a meeting with my brother and a consultant. I said, you know what, guys? I'm done. I'm not CEO anymore. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. And I'm not going to do the things that needs to be done by a CEO. And it was just literally this shock. And I was like, but it was the most peaceful decision I made in my life when 10 years ago, saying that would have been like, there's no way, because I started this company. It is my company. I'm the CEO. Even if I'm not the one running the job, I only say it as a way of, to me, that was a simple step to me being rich and wealthy. To me, that was me saying, I want to enjoy life and be happy and do the things I want to do. And naturally, that'll make me more money. But right now, it's moving away from the CEO position. And I talk about this a lot on the channel. And to me, the mental part of the reason I tell people to read Psychology of Money and Richer, Wiser, Happier first, and hopefully when we read the simple steps to being rich, we add that, because to me, that's psychology.
You got to say that again. Small steps to rich.
Sorry, the small steps to rich. Once people read, hopefully when they read these 3 books, that's what preps them in their mind of saying, what's the true definition of wealth? And that's what matters most.
Well, the book Small Steps to Rich starts with the definition of rich, because I think that when people read the title, which is admittedly provocative, they may have an impression of rich as bling, or being waited on hand and foot, or invoking the envy of others, which it's not. You know, rich to me is freedom. Specifically, it's the ability to make any reasonable choice without having to fear the economic fallout from that choice.
Yeah, and that seems to be to me, when I hear truly happy people who have money, that's the definition. It's funny because I was going to say, what is rich to you? I was going to ask you, and then you said to me, and I was like, I know what he's going to say. It's freedom to be able to do whatever you want. Like you said, within reason. Like, I don't want to, whatever it is, it's within reason. Like, if I want to go on a trip, like you said in your book, was it your book? You said, it was your book. You're talking about, you don't have to worry about making a decision, buying a flight, going all these places. It was just
right.
Yep.
That's how Small Steps to Rich starts. That's right.
Yep. So that was a big thing.
That's when my dad got sick.
Correct.
And I could just drop everything and be with him. And that was. I felt I felt unfortunate owing to the health of my father, of course, but the ability to literally drop everything and be with him. That's really the best example of rich I can think of. That's when something summons you that truly matters and you can do it.
And you know what mine was? Can I brag to you about what mine was? It was 5 or 6 years ago, going to Paramount Tennis in Medina, Seth, and knowing that on a Tuesday night I could just go play tennis with a bunch of guys and not care. Well, and the funny thing is, it's so funny because if you told me at 18 that would be the point when I felt rich, I'd been like, there's no way. It would have been the house I had or the cars. And I remember walking down the hall past the staircase
that is an unwinnable, ongoing contest that you can never feel victorious about.
Of course, ever. There's always something bigger. There's always something better. But I remember walking down that hall going, oh my God, it's a Tuesday night and it's 9:00 and I'm going to go play tennis for an hour and a half to 10:30 and not care.
Right.
And everybody else I was playing with was basically late in their career, retired, and they could do that because of that.
You're right.
And to me, I was at the time 35.
This yesterday. I was working out, lifting at Springside. I was the only person on the whole floor, and I was like, wow, have I made it? Like I can go at 1:00 in the afternoon and shoot hoops and like enjoy life. But Kenneth, I don't know if I want to open up this can of worms, but I'm certain you get a bunch of questions about. I'm somewhat alarmed nowadays about how the ideas of cryptocurrencies and NFTs have crept into the normal and new investor thinks that this is a very profitable and amazing play that should be included in everyone's portfolio. I'm sure you get questions about these. How do you handle a question like that? Like, should I be investing in all this? Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's split them into two, crypto and NFT separately. I mean, the headline is, I don't know. I really don't know. I get why people are interested in cryptocurrencies. I guess there's two reasons. The first is that certain cryptocurrencies have really run up in price. They've dipped too on occasion, but I mean, they've really run up in price. And when anything runs up in price, it's by definition going to attract investor attention, right? I think wing nuts in my local hardware store cost about $1 each. If wing nuts suddenly spiked in price from $1 to $100, there would be investor interest in wing nuts, right? There'd be
100%.
There'd be a subreddit called Wingnut Wealth. There'd be YouTube channels about investing in wingnut futures. Brokerages would have, wingnut, hot forged North American wingnut conferences and stuff. So, I mean, part of the interest, I think, just comes from the fact that there's been run-ups in price of an extreme nature. The second cause of interest is fiat currencies and distrust of them. The US dollar used to be backed by gold, same with the British pound and other major currencies. But for some decades now, they haven't been. So this generates an understandable fear that governments can just flip on the mint and basically debase every outstanding dollar, in the case of the United States, for example, which in a way is sort of taxation without representation. And so people fear that. They fear that the savings they have will lose purchasing power. And so they want something that's kind of more stable. But, in my own view, and again, I want to say I don't know exactly what I think about this, but in my own view, going from a fear of fiat currencies to a love of stateless digital tokens doesn't make sense to me. To me, it's sort of like buying the British pound as if there was no Britain and no pound. So I don't quite get it. Now, I should say in fairness, as an American, my native currency is relatively stable, right? We have the dollar, which remains the world's reserve currency and will certainly remain a major currency of some sort for some period of time, to people from countries with unstable currencies, where governments routinely lop zeros off the end, or there's hyperinflation, or currency controls, or something else, I can see how cryptocurrencies would have more practical appeal. An algorithm might seem more responsible than a central bank. I get it. But as a investable asset class, I don't get it. And this may be another example where I just don't get something that's really real, that's really happening, and I'm committing an error of omission.
We admit to that. Oh, yeah, we admit to that on the show a lot, and like Warren Buffett says, or Charlie Munger, the idea of if you don't understand it, just stay away. But I find when I speak to normal folks, investing is difficult and complicated and nerdy, and cryptocurrencies is all my friends are doing it, and they're getting me into this, and it's just so easy nowadays, and not even. I mean,
well, every bubble is easy while it's.
Is that it, Paul?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, when real estate, look at every single time. I remember in college, a kid had taken time off of high school to work as a trader. He literally said to me, Paul, it was so crazy. If we didn't make 300% in a day on an IPO, we were pissed. Okay, so it worked for a while, and then all of a sudden 150% in a day was not good enough, and that made it really easy. Oh, it's easy to make money. You just buy this, and it goes up 150%, and that was a bad day. It's like, okay, well, as Kenneth said, at some point you sat there and said, well, this just isn't right.
Yeah.
This shouldn't the way money should be. Same with crypto. And then people talk about crypto as in my opinion, people look at crypto as, hey, we want this to be a more stable thing we can trust. Stable because it's up 1,000% in 1 year and drops 30% in a week.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of risk versus volatility. I mean, people confuse those terms all the time. And it's like, that's your idea of stability? Like, yeah, I get it. Listen, I'm a strict libertarian. I talk about the government and the devaluation, but at the same point, people say, well, what's the difference between the Bitcoin and the dollar? Well, the dollar is backed by the U.S. government, the strength of the U.S. government. Don't get the political conversation about the government. Just, it's backed by the U.S. economy. I mean, yes, I get it. They're devaluing it and all that stuff, but that's just the reality, I think, of what, once we go off the gold standard, it's going to be the reality of economies as we grow. And I do agree with Kenneth. We're the reserve currency now. We probably won't be at some point in the future, but we'll still be just like the British pound. Britain was its heyday back 200, 300 years ago. Doesn't mean that it's a crappy country now. It's just not the number one economy. Fine. It's still going to be a great economy, though. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it.
If I could be, Seth's good question compels a remark, if I may. I mean, the way he was describing how easy it is to get into it and how everyone around him is getting into it. Remember in the first Star Wars when the Millennium Falcon gets sucked into the Death Star?
No, I didn't watch Star Wars.
What?
I know. I knew this was coming, and I've seen half of the It's just as big a nerd as I was in high school.
Bo, are you with me on this? Or
no, I've never seen it either.
It was my religion when I was a kid. No, keep going. Well, for us and everyone else in the world, we understand where you're headed.
There's no frame of reference here?
No.
Okay, let's try another one.
Go ahead.
Let's try another one. If you feel yourself on some sort of greased slide, inexorably being pulled down by some sort of force, recognize that you're being tempted into an activity into which you should probably not partake. That's a basic good orientation for investing, right? So, I mean, buying second condos as an investment in late 2007 would be a good example of this, right? You had people, with ninja loans, no income, no job, borrowing money to buy condominiums with the idea that they could rent them out in such a way that the after-tax income would exceed the, carrying costs of the property and so forth. There's a stage at which some sort of investment craze feels inexorable, like you can't possibly resist it. And that's usually a useful sign that you should resist it. You should resist it. And, turning yourself off whatever media is making you feel sucked in is probably a good first step in that process.
Absolutely.
Well, the new book is called Small Steps to Rich, Personal Finance Made Simple. I have mine on order, Kenneth. Sadly, it's going to be here tomorrow. I was dying to read it before I interview you, but I'm going to get on it. I will let my child has read the little book that beats the market, my 11-year-old, and he was drawn to it. So he's deep in investing at the moment, and he wants to do this for a living moving forward. He's very in love with what Mo does in terms of trading. So he will be reading your book as well. We'd love to have you back on the show again.
We will have Kenneth back on the show.
And you can also go to smallstepsrich.com to get the book and sign up for our newsletter, right, Kenneth? I think you have a newsletter that comes out or something you can sign up for. How else can people find you on social media?
That's good. KennethJeffreyMarshall.com. I don't do a whole lot of social media stuff.
Could you have picked a longer domain name by chance? Do you not have a junior or a senior or the fourth or something like that?
I could have put like degrees afterwards. Kenneth Jeffrey Marshall, MBA. Mr. spelled out, Mister. The nice thing about the super long MBAs is nobody gets to the site by accident.
That's true.
That is true.
The little super long URL. Nobody's like, oh, how did this happen?
Please tell me your email is KennethJeffreyMarshall@KennethJeffreyMarshall.com.
Well, that would work, technically.
Yes.
Would work. But I would appreciate something a bit more formal if you could come up with it. Could you do that?
Kenneth, we can't wait to have you on the show in the future. We appreciate you coming on. I'm certain our viewers really love this interview. And we'll read the book. We'll talk about it. Great. And Paul, your final take on Mo, final take on
I've been a big fan since I read Good Stocks. I don't remember how I found Good Stocks cheap. I think it was I don't remember how, but I remember reading it, emailing Kenneth, and I think, and speaking of I don't know how you got my email because I think there was something wrong with your website, but he was very gracious to respond.
I know exactly how. You found me on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's right.
It was almost a year ago to the week. It was like 51 weeks ago or something like that.
Wow, that's great.
I just checked. And then you sent me an email afterwards saying, hey, I'm off LinkedIn. Why'd you get off LinkedIn, by the way?
You talked about being peaceful. I'm one of the few value investors who's not as peaceful as I'd like to be. And this is me calmer than I used to be.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting so aggravated by the trolling and the thing. And I also look at LinkedIn as, people, it's this bragging world of let me see how fast I can tell people how amazing I am. And, for example, my Instagram is all my dogs. I have 4 dogs. All I do on Instagram is here are pictures of my dogs. So it's funny. I get messages from followers. And they'll say, Paul, can you please put more about investing in business? No. It's about my dogs. It's about Michigan football or basketball or sports. And every once in a while, I'll put something having to do with finance in there. But other than that, it's 95% just me having a good time and showing, because I'm just a normal person. And I just have 4 dogs that I love to death. And I'd probably, want to have 40 if it was socially acceptable.
You could eat one of your dogs 5 watches and still have 3 left over for yourself.
So you make a joke about that, but my one watch does have a Rolex. My one dog does have a Rolex. and a cell phone. No, I'm just kidding. But
okay.
I do have enough watches to cover every single dog.
All pause.
Yes. But Kenneth's been wonderful. And by the way, I love about Kenneth? His emails were very succinct. Hi, I'm Kenneth. And then we get on the phone and immediately he's making jokes. He's cracking, talking about, I love the fact that he's a very, that sounds like you don't take yourself too seriously, which I love.
That's a useful disposition, I think.
Absolutely.
And there was a period when that wasn't so.
Oh, exactly.
When I was in business school, I was surrounded by people who, everybody was of a mind to take themselves somewhat seriously. And I guess I kind of left that. But gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Kenneth. Guys, go read this book.
Read Good Stocks and the new book. Yep. Make sure you guys order it. So that's our take. Tickle the thumbs up on the way out, guys. Kenneth, thanks for joining us. We'll have you on again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.